Hola, hola, and buenos dias, GnGs. My name is Trekkw2ks, and this is Weekend Crypto brought to you here on the Gentleman of Crypto YouTube channel, aka the Gentleman of Crypto Network, aka Gentleman of Crypto Death Row. I don't know. But anywho, nonetheless, I am Trekkw2ks, and if you don't know, the basic idea on this segment is I cover crypto news that happens between a Friday and a Sunday, and then we go over it on a Monday morning in a live comments back and forth, right? And so that's basically what's been working for me for a while right now. The other thing to add in is that I don't do the price talk stuff though. So there's no, what's the token or coin of the day. There's no looking at the charts. I'm not that guy, and I'm not sorry about that because we got King, we got Zay, we got Black Roo, we got the Simonson family, we got the Stack Bros, we got a number of other people who can hit y'all with the enough of the price talk stuff. I just happen to not be that guy, and in some regards, I intentionally look to avoid stories that I think one of them might cover. If you notice how much our stuff might overlap, if you watch between the other channels, but nonetheless, the point being is this is what Weekend Crypto is, and I want to say thank you to the folks who are coming back. Thank you to the folks who are still engaging with me in the live the chat and all that stuff. Thank you to the lurkers and the scammers who be on the back end doing what they do, because on the back end we still see the numbers moving how they move for the view count and stuff like that. So I appreciate y'all, even y'all, in those regards. For the new folks just finding me, hey, like I said, I don't do the price talk. I pretty much give this stuff the context of, is this an event or is this a trend? And is it an event that is a trend or a confirmation of a pattern? And I try to stay away from the price talk with stuff, because you know why? I'm not a CPA, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a financial advisor. So it makes sense for me to stay away from those things considering what's going on in the space right now. Other than that, folks, let's jump into these stories, because I got a couple of things that, yeah, y'all gonna see what I'm talking about. Here we are. The first story is Lookshare NFT Marketplace embarks on a new phase with contract migration. All right, so this came out here on the weekend, right? So over on the weekend, and the short of this is they're basically changing the smart contract. What I don't like about what this article did was it doesn't give you a critique of what is going on with the old contract versus the new contract. Why does this benefit people who are holding the Look token, which is a part of the in platform currency? And so in my mind, to me, this reads as, especially for how much like fluff is in the semantics of how this person wrote the article. And don't get me wrong, the person who wrote the article, what's their name? Hasib Shaheen. I think I'm more than likely saying the last name wrong. You're good with words, bro. You really are. But the short of this is they're tweaking their revenue model, and they're trying to incentivize people who are holding any of their in-game and in-platform NFT, or sorry, in-platform token looks. They're trying to incentivize them to move over to the new contract. I would argue that if they don't get enough of the user base who's holding a token to move over, they're either going to take a drastic action to make them move over, as far as like circumstantial thing of like, hey, you know, some funky stuff could happen, and all of a sudden, like, well, we have to migrate everyone over to this contract now, versus where it was a voluntary thing. I don't know what the hard number would be for them to force people's hand. Is it if they get 34% of the user base with the token to migrate over? Is it they need to at least have 65% of the people that then makes it that the rest will follow? I don't know. But my takeaway from this article is it doesn't actually inform you of what are the pros and cons of the contracts. Why is it that they're changing their 24-month plan that they were pushing all of this year and last year and stuff, and now they're going to go into this situation, and they're not even explaining to you, well, what's the pro of the contract? Why is this one going to be better than us sticking with where we're at right now? In part, I also do think they're prepping for next year. There might be some other things going on that this contract might have more centralization features in it than the other contracts. I don't know. It's not being explained here, but I got some other stories that kind of lead me to think something might be going on along that line. Nonetheless, if you are a DJ and if you're over there on the NFT market stuff, this might be something you want to pay attention to. Just saying. Jumping off to this next story. CoinGecko acquires Zash to integrate NFT data into its API. Honestly, as a aggregator of blockchain data, this 100% makes sense for CoinGecko to make an acquisition of a business that specifically focused on that, because CoinGecko was primarily focused on just the tokens and the NFTs, and more than likely they didn't have enough of the in-house talent to let's say develop the in-house tools that they would have ideally liked. And so they saw what Zash was doing. I might be saying that wrong, I don't know, but it makes sense that they did this move. One of the things that they cover in this article is how they're going to look to implement some stuff that would be helpful to the user in figuring out, like, is this a viable, NFT project, as far as being able to predict, or at least being able to give some level of analysis of whether the marketplace for a NFT is actually wash trading based on the creator of the NFT and what's going on between the wallet addresses. So that's arguably a good thing. Some people might have issue with CoinGecko for some of the other ways that they do, their analysis and details and stuff. Arguably, X amount of this information isn't even going to be for the average Joe person, because most of the folks are going to be late to the party anyway. Like I imagine they're probably going to implement, if they already haven't done it, a tier version of CoinGecko down the road, where it's like the same thing of what X amount of the aggregator platforms do, where it's like, we'll give you X amount of base information of analysis, and then we'll give you more in-depth stuff. So this probably might be playing into what their plan might be down the road, to integrate a level of tiered subscriptions for the users who really are the more dig into the details of what is going on with a platform. If you don't know, like, pretty much everything is working off of APIs right now when it comes to how you either use a blockchain explorer that allows you to look at a blockchain, because you're not looking directly at it yourself. There's X amount of middleware in between you and the actual blockchain. If you don't know how to actually go in and examine transactions yourself, X amount of times, that's an API thing. So honestly, to me, this makes sense. Other thing as an indicator, though, is that we'll probably see other aggregator platforms that are specifically crypto. They're going to start acquiring other smaller startup companies that do some focus or niche level of data mining. But it's going to be really interesting when you start seeing the non-crypto related firms and companies that start doing the acquisition. And it's not just going to be financial bank institution players. It's going to be non-finance related folks, non-bank related folks. That to me is going to be the more interesting part, to see what type of company along those lines are going to start acquiring the either talent pool or the IP product of that company. Look what just happened with Bitwave and Gilded. They acquired all of the IP stuff and only took the CEO and pretty much dropped all of the dev team and the other office people. But that was, for them, the value was in the products that the Gilded had made, not the tech team or the people who built the relationships to expand the company. But whatever, let me let that go. Another thing to see on the radar as far as indicators for how this space is going to move going forward. All right, so this one, if you've seen the title, you see what I said about Lightning Network kicks US users. Basically, yeah, that's what happened. So let me put the context to this. Wallet of Satoshi is a custodial wallet platform that operates within the Lightning Network. And so the article basically breaks down, they are getting a lot of pressure and seeing certain indicators within the regulatory market that says, hey, the American market is not going to work for us. So here's how I see this in my mind. We already have enough indicators that if you're not getting down or laying down with how the US regulatory space is looking to progress going forward, you can't play within the American market. But the way that the US says American market, it means if one person touches your platform, that's the American market. We get jurisdiction and everything else that comes with that. Case in point, we see the situation with Binance. It's not even an American company. And then the things that are going on with CZ and Binance are separate from Binance US. Not everybody's making that distinction. I have a whole nother thought process on what I think the US is doing to Binance, but whatever on that. In regards to this situation, I just look at it and it's a joke from the break. You're a custodial wallet, which means you inherently go against the namesake of what you or who you're named after. If you've read the white paper, if you've gone through any of the emails and stuff and the conversations between Adam and the rest of the early folks in the whole Bitcoin protocol stuff, the idea was this, what for Bitcoin was about it being a peer-to-peer thing that was uncensorable by adding a third party or a gate guard or a middle person within the transaction. This wallet literally goes against its whole namesake. In my mind, I could see if they try to come back into the American market, let's say after 2025 starts, they have to rebrand the wallet. Because the way people understand Bitcoin, Satoshi, the white paper and stuff now, I got another article that actually highlights the point of like the things that people are understanding now about Bitcoin and like why it came up after the whole 08 period. it's mind blowing how much of a difference it is from the early day values to what people get now. And so I imagine that if this company tried to enter the market come 2025 or later, they would have to rebrand, one, because of the branding and the name recognition of Satoshi and stuff with the earlier ideals of crypto. And then the other part of the regulatory space is going to be even more solidified. So you can't even operate the way you was operating before. So yeah, if you're somebody on the Lightning Network, the closing day was like the 24th. So hopefully you got your heads up or your notice. If you didn't, you might want to go check into it. Not financial advice, just saying. I also think this is funky the way they did it, because if they closed on the 24th, ideally you would have gave the public some 30-day notice, like, hey, in a month we have to do blah blah blah. So there might be something else playing out in the fact that they did this with like a week or maybe 2 weeks notice, and I didn't see this story or anything related to it in last week's run through of the news cycle. So I'm kind of wondering, what is this situation that's not being said about what's going on with them? Somebody might know better. If you do, comments is open. As I say, we don't delete comments, but we do keep receipts. So please share if you feel up for it. All right, next story. So listen, I keep saying, Hong Kong it sits in a very special place for the C state. And this to me is an indicator of one of the things I had covered last week about what was going on with Hong Kong and them testing out the C states, CBDCs, and how Hong Kong sits as part of one of the seaports for the BRI, which is the Belt and Road Initiative, right? It used to be called the One Belt, One Road, and it used to be called like the New Silk Road and blah, blah, blah. But nonetheless, I made the point last week about how what happens when you put in a sandbox CBDCs, fiat, precious metals, cryptos, and you about to throw in some ETF stuff, right? So you got a bunch of different financial instruments, and you're putting it in a sandbox where it's not just homogeneous your organizations or companies or financial entities there, but it is them plus foreign players. Like the sandbox games are going to be ridiculous. Why? Because it works to where they basically are using Hong Kong as the beta test to see what business structures will come from this, what business types will come from this in regards to the financial sector, as well as seeing like what will people do at the retail level, like the institutional level, commercial, family trust, all of that stuff. That's going to be what it's going to be. But the more, let's say, innovative, questionable part is going to be what happens at the retail level, right? And so, to me, something like this, because this situation here is that it's a company called, what is the company called? The company is called, where are you? Victory Securities, and they basically got the license to be able to do the financial advisement and management to retail level people in Hong Kong. Again, you got to understand how many foreign companies register in Hong Kong, how many foreigners, Europeans, Africans, people from Latin America, people from North America, Australians, like how many of those folks are out there, and they're going to have access to this financial instrument via this company. The funky part to me, though, is we've literally worked backwards to where we went talking about financial and economic independence and sovereignty as far as being able to manage, control, save, spend, and distribute our own capital, to where we work back around to where it's like, oh no, we have to go to an institution or go to a third party. Again, the early ideals and point of the Bitcoin protocol, the Bitcoin blockchain was, here is a system, here is a medium of changing economic value between 1 and 2 parties, 1 and 3 parties. The idea being there could be no third party that would facilitate, gate guard, poll tax you on your ability to transact in this financial manner. And we've literally worked ourselves backwards into going back into that same system. Like, if you've been in this space for a minute, I keep saying the same thing. It's mind blowing to watch it develop and play out. But then from the financial side, from the Wall Street side, from the traditional gate guard side, right, of economic power centers, like, they literally said the things that they were going to do to bring it back into the fold, and it's almost playing out that way. There's some people, trying to do other things, but for the most part, you see most of these major economic power centers following in lockstep with the same plan to bring it all back into the fold. Anywho, on to this next story. So, all right. So ECB chief Lagarde says son ignored her, lost almost all crypto. Now, the reason why I bring this story up, right, is not to promote Lagarde in a positive light. And if you don't know, ECB is the European Central Bank. So she is the president. Christine Lagarde is the president of the ECB. Now, why do I bring this up? Because what this story and what Protos and a couple of other places covered this article. All right, let me step back one. The original article is in Reuters. I did not read the original article because in my mind, the way that I'm taking this story is what they're doing is they're using she used the talking point of my son lost almost all of his crypto to be able to say, well, of course I know about crypto. I'm a financial expert who works at the ECB and my son used crypto. Mind you, she has more than one son. You don't know which son it is. You don't even know what the son actually was involved in. You don't know if he was a degen. You don't know if he was just a horrible trader. You don't know if he just was putting money in scams and kept getting scammed. You don't know any of those contextual details that actually matter. All you get is the talking point of, oh, my son lost his crypto because he didn't listen to me. And this thing of, well, she's a parent who also works in the financial world. And so she has a level of understanding of crypto because she knows the traditional system, and her son, quote, experimented and played in the crypto space and lost his money, his crypto. But again, I just went over, you don't get none of the context of, well, what did he actually do? How did he lose it? Was he a horrible trader? You don't know any of that. The point of where I'm going with this is that mainstream news in following is crypto news platforms are following with mainstream news in presenting people like this as experts about this crypto thing, even though she isn't a part of it because she's not active in the space. She gets to comment on it because she's posted as a financial expert because of her job title. There's a number of economic professionals and financial experts that you could look up on, Googly or YouTube, and they would tell you she's a basket case and she doesn't know anything of what she talks about. And then there's other people who would tell you, oh, wow, yeah, she's a very important person. She knows all of what she's saying. But when you ask certain things, the details get murky. The point being is that when you see these stories come out and they give you people with titles and like a lot of zeros behind their name, like you got to ask the question of, why am I hearing about this person? And am I actually getting information that is relevant? Am I actually getting the details that make it make sense? This is one of those stories where they're trying to hit you with, oh, the lady who's in charge of a financial institution that talks the good game about financial inclusion, but doesn't do it the way y'all think it is. She knows about crypto because she told her son not to do it. What sense does that make as far as like, what does she really know about crypto? None. Absolutely none. All right, jumping into this next story. I don't want to beat that horse too much. Blockchain dev expect complications from EU smart contract kill switch. So here's the bottom line, and this goes into another story that I have a little bit further in, related to the changes that the EU is like looking to drop. All right, so the bottom line is the EU is looking to propose. There's a committee in the EU that pushes the whole thing of the EU's Data Act. That's like, hey, smart contracts need to have a kill switch in them where the transactions can be stopped, reversed, or frozen, or whatever. It doesn't, at least in this article, it doesn't get into the part of, well, who has the authority to do that? Is this going to be pushed at all of the exchanges? But what happens when smart contracts are not just a part of exchanges? They're part of other back-end tech stack developments. And so there's a whole debate that is going into this thing about what does that mean as far as like, it goes counter to how or what a smart contract is supposed to be, which it's supposed to be a self-executing program, as far as just it does 1, 2, or 3 things, right? So it's a self-executing code. There we go. That's what I was trying to say. So the EU is looking to push this thing under the whole Data Act. But the community, as far as the crypto side folks and then the other techie folks who get it, are like, well, I don't know how that would actually work out because of this, and this issue. So they're naming multiple issues. One of the things they don't actually cover in this article that kind of gets me is they don't get into the security issue of, Well, what happens when you put the kill switch in and then you start putting the or you start putting more important or more impactful systems and let's say functions in it that affect either the private sector or the government sector. So case in point, if you start connecting X amount of the central banking stuff going on into a smart contract, and then someone figures out, because eventually everyone knows like security is as a thing is never 100% absolute. It's always a when question versus an if question, right? And so you connect X amount of stuff with the central banks into a smart contract, a network or another state sponsored, hacker. They figure out how to trigger the kill switch. Another thing that most folks don't understand in cybersecurity, X amount of time, it's not about taking away your, if you have a financial thing about taking away the data, taking away your money, right? Whether we charge you to give you the data back or whether we just steal money from you. The other part of it that is very, very impactful and has rippling effects is to disrupt someone's ability to operate. That will cost someone way more money than when you just steal money from them, right? Or when you charge them to get their data back. If I stop your operation for 10 hours, 5 hours, 24 hours, 2 weeks, oh, I'm screwing up multiple things. But anywho, the point about this is, if the folks in the EU are having this conversation, at some point you can expect to hear the conversation coming out over here across the pond, as they say, with the American regulators. And do remember, we're going into the election cycle, and we already have been given enough examples that cryptos and blockchain will definitely be talking points within the election campaign, as we see the state level folks doing the talking points, and we see the national level folks doing the talking points. So I would say this might be something you'll hear come out over here. If they actually follow through on this and push it and actually like get companies to write smart contract. And the other part to note is, it's not that they're pushing it quote across the board, but they'll put it in key topology wise, key areas where it would disrupt how transactions would flow through a network. That's part of the thing they mentioned is like the target of where this would get pushed. It wouldn't just be every single contract out there. It would be putting it at choke points of where the systems would cross and interconnect. And that's a dangerous thing onto itself too. I don't know, man. Like some days I look at this and I'm just like, is this really just us? Like, do we really look to work ourselves back into these corners, into these walled gardens? I don't know what else to say, y'all. But anywho, this happened. If you out there in the EU, something you might want to pay attention to. If you're trying to like set up a business out that way, again, something you want to pay attention to, because this is coming down the pike, and I do expect to hear it across the pond at least in 2024. If not 2025, the latest. Anywho, next one. Here we are. Hack crypto exchange of $50 million offered a reward to the hacker for a return. So a decentralized exchange called KeeperSwipe is negotiating with a hacker is the bottom line. So I think at this point, considering how many hacks have happened over this last year, where the story then got turned around into hacker says, hey, I'll give you back X percentage of what I took and keep this amount. It's starting to look like this is the new lick if you're a hacker. Just as how we went where we had ransomware, where before it was, hey, I'm gonna take this from you and I'm gonna charge you for me to give it back to you, but I make the process so cumbersome. You know what? Let me give you a set of instructions that are very simple to be able to pay me so you can get your stuff back. And lo and behold, when you talk to cyber people and the folks who like was paying attention to it in the early 2000s and seeing how that niche tactic of ransomware, when they switched their not customer acquisition, but they switched their mode of operation by adding in user-friendly methods to set up the payment and get the money to whoever the ransomware operator person was. Like, that was a game changer. And more than what, 10, 15 years later, guess what? We still here going through the same thing. And X number of places are paying the ransomware operator. So like, and it's to the point now where you could do ransomware on some like click. Like you go find the site, it has a thing, you download it, you figure out who the target thing is. Listen, I'm not telling nobody to go out there and do none of this. I need y'all to understand, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not out here trying to tell you to go do nothing that's breaking the law. I'm not promoting that. Just to be clear, I'm just giving an example of you can do stuff like this now where you don't even know anything technical. It doesn't mean you're going to be the most efficient or proficient at it. I'm just saying that you don't need to know how to code to do some of this stuff. pardon, do some of this stuff now. And so this right here, to me, counts as the pattern forming that certain hackers will start doing the thing of targeting the, and this might move over into more of the DeFi space, not the CeFi DeFi stuff, but like go after either the startup or go after one of those platforms that are really more DeFi based, where if something happens, it's like, well, not your keys, not your cheese. Oh, you guys didn't do your security evaluations and critiques like you needed to. You weren't up on your stuff and putting the patches in. Yo, you got caught slipping. Yo, this is, I said this the other day about another situation. This is literally like how when you in the trap house and you doing your thing, right? The stick-up boy catch you slipping and is like, all right, yo, this is all me now. And then they'll come back around if you didn't know who was who, and they'll try to sell you back your own product. Like, this is that. But as part of listen, I'm laughing at myself. I'm sorry, but like, this is some street game business right here. Like, this is literally what made it that the stick-up kids, like, that revenue model became prevalent in any hood where you had trappers. And when I say trappers, I mean with any hood where you had dealers of whatever it is you was dealing. Was you the fence dude who always found the TVs and whatever that dropped off the back of the truck? Was you the pharmaceutical pusher on the street level? Whatever it was or is, you have the other criminal who is looking to base their revenue model on acquiring your product and then either charging you to get the product back, or they'll keep part of it and then go fence off the other part to somebody else. Like, that's what this is right here. And heaven knows, like I said, you can do this stuff now with just a couple of clicks and, downloads, and you don't have to actually know how to code. So this stuff is only going to scale further, which would then make more of the regulatory stuff happen as we push through the decade. But it's just going to scale more. This person is basically getting 10% of 50 million, y'all. Like, the other funky part though is and the article doesn't make it clear on whether like they're actually seeing where everything is, but arguably you get the 10%, but like how long will it be before you'd actually be able to liquidate and cash out or like convert enough to where they can't catch you? And you got to think like what was the name of the couple? I can't remember the name of the couple that did I think the Bitfinex thing. And that was like years later when they caught them. And it was all on some dumbness too, because they went through a centralized exchange on something. And then like they found an email or something. But it was like years later. So arguably, I don't even know what the main story is on this right here. Like, what's the thing to actually walk away with? Is it that this is actually going to make into its own sub-market of where it will be about getting the drop on exchanges or getting the drop on whale wallets, and then charging them or keeping a percentage of what you take from them and then give them the majority of it back? For me, I can see this being a thing and scaling only because of understanding that on the other side of the tech of like the software and the technical execution, you don't have to be a coder to do this stuff. The tech is scaling to where it's just a couple of clicks and a download. Anywho, leave it there. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not telling you to go out and do anything illegal. Please don't go out and do anything illegal. All right, jumping into this next joint. Europe drops crypto bomb. Massive changes coming for CAPs. I think I'm CASAPs? I don't know, whatever. CASP. You see what it says. This goes into the other story that I said about the thing with the smart contracts and the kill switch. Like, basically, the EU is like, hey, we want more transparency and more following the rules of transportation under the AML KYC. So not only do we want to know, John sent such and such to Sarah in Dublin. It's like, well, where was John? John was in let's say Lesbian. Okay, John was in Lesbian. It was this time of day. It was over in, this cafe thing. And then they went to blah, blah, blah. Like, they want to know to that level. And I wonder, it might be a struggle that they might not get everything in 2024. But I think that eventually there will be a thing of where it's like, how do I say this? Okay, so here's the question. And I bring this up this way because of other things that I've heard mentioned about the EU, in that there are some folks who look at the geopolitical landscape and go, the EU is on its deathbed. Not saying it's going to end tomorrow or it's going to end in 5 years, but they don't see the current state and structure of how the EU is right now as being something that makes it into 2045, 2050. Because as far as they see it, this whole idea of we're going to take all of these different nation states and make everyone act under one accord, it hasn't been as promising as it was sold in the beginning. Okay. And so my thing would be this: the EU is pushing something that arguably would be like we're going to enact this from now and forever forward. So what would happen to a regulatory thing like this if in 15 years the EU isn't a thing anymore? Who still honors that? Or how do you enforce that? I don't know. But those are the thoughts that initially running around my head. I think that there would definitely be a period of where the more intrusive information gathering will take place. There's going to be that period for sure. And usually the tactic is they'll just make regulations to where for the parts of the industry, whether it be crypto or not, that can be controlled under government regulation, they're just going to make it more harder for folks who don't participate in the system to then have to be a part of the system and transactional stuff. That's just one of those things. That's the tactic. And as it looks right now, it tends to be an effective tactic because why? People want to make money. People want to stay in power. People want to be greedy. People want to stay in the status quo. People like looking at the garden wall. And not enough of those people are people who arguably want to keep with digital sovereignty, economic sovereignty, or keep with a more federalized version of how the big government should be smaller relationship. Just, I'm rambling. Let me let that one go, y'all. All right. So next joint. Where are we at? Yeah. So I've said it last couple of weeks now. We're going to see CBDCs, aka the blue dogs, go through a phase of where everyone's going to look to showcase their blue dog, meaning there's going to be that blockchain fork phenomenon that we had in the 2015 into the 18th period, right? Where, oh, I got my version is called this, blah, 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 blah. And I think it's going to be different. And this is just the pattern. The pattern of, the different countries, central banks will start issuing out or start testing out their CBDC. And the way that this one actually is talking about it for South Korea is they're talking about like 100,000 people. It won't come out until Q4 of 2024. And it's just like, well, why are y'all waiting so late in the year to do it? Why not just do it, during the summertime, Q3, Q2? Especially considering that we know that other countries are starting their stuff out in next year. But arguably, the trend is like do it in the latter part of 2024. When I think about like what's been announced so far, Australia's testing their stuff out. The R state did what they did with the UAE. I mentioned that a couple of weeks ago about that whole business agreement. The C state is doing their thing with pushing it along, the BRI route. Somebody in Latin America just did something. Somebody in Canada's testing out something. Who else? The UK is doing their version of testing. Somebody in Africa, a couple of places in Africa are doing their thing. The point being is the trend looks like everyone's going to start kicking off in 2024. Or not everyone, but at least the more notable economic powers or economic centers, let me say economic centers, are kicking off in 2024. And so you'll see everyone go through their ebbs and flows of how their local market works and plays with their blue dog versus how they can get other jurisdictions and other economic centers to agree to play with their blue dog, aka CBDC. So expect to hear more agreements, contractual agreements of bilateral financial activity between these countries as far as their CBDCs. It's not just going to be my joint is live online. It's like, nope, I did a specific agreement with this and this country or this and this organization, which has a body membership of X number of countries, if that makes sense. That's going to be the next phase of things to start going on. But we're going to see everyone, as far as the major financial hubs through the central banks, they're going to start pushing their CBDCs in next year. And it's going to be, honestly, it's also going to mean for, traditional nation states, it's also just going to mean a new platform for economic warfare. Like, bottom line on that. I don't know who's going to be the first one to shoot the shot, but considering how the U.S. has weaponized the SWIFT system, how we see, other countries penalize their neighbors for certain things through the financial routes. It's one of those like hard lessons learned, and to me, it looks like we're going to repeat that. But anywho, let's jump on to this next story. Again, just something to watch, as this is the pattern being set going forward. The R state, this is cold-blooded. Mules seizing crypto and CBDCs in bankruptcy cases. In my mind, because of what I've been paying attention to with how the R state has been upgrading and adding new regulatory frameworks and policies around blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies, precious metals in connection to tokenization and CBDCs, this is more than likely a going to happen guarantee thing of they're basically giving what might be the equivalent of marshals and bail bonds people the ability to, like, once you get caught up in whatever the legal situation is for bankruptcy or for like lawsuit or for, financial liquidation, like these folks are just gonna come in. All right, this is what you got in the house. Okay, let me see that. Let me see the smartphone. Let me see the wallet. Let me see the hard wallet. And they just gonna go through and take all of what they can, which the way this article breaks it down, it pretty much seems like they will have the legal authority to go to exchanges and be like, hey, this person under this ID connected to these accounts, these are now frozen. They cannot do anything going forward until we give the clear. The real funky part of one of the things that they want to do in this is they want to allow it where, as opposed to where the agency of the marshals, not the marshals, the bailiffs, or I forgot what the other part is, come in and then like we have to take the hard wallet, or we have to have the exchange transfer the crypto or digital asset, aka NFTs and stuff like that, or tokens, to a wallet that the agency has, or that department or whatever. It's like, nope, that's not what we're gonna do. We're just gonna leave it on the exchange. The account goes in a special sandbox, and then when we do the liquidation sale, it'll be on the exchange. Like, think about that. Because the exchange is going to be like, well, we want to still make money. And if we just let y'all walk away with this, crypto stuff, this NFT stuff, we don't make any money off of the transaction that's going to happen when you sell it back to the public or you sell it to the institutional level folks. Think about how Tim Draper got his crypto. The U.S. Marshals took it, put it up for sale, but he had to go to the special auction that was, for folks in that tax bracket, and then go through that process. Versus if the stuff was already still on the exchange, all right, bet you might not even they might do some stuff where you don't even have to do a actual account registration. More it's just like it's a special like 1 day access thing that works for the particular sale of that crypto. Listen, here's the other thing to note about this. I'm gonna take this as an indicator that if this actually happens either the end of this year or in next year, you will see this come to Europe and you will see it come to the US, where they're going to start seizing people's stuff. And as opposed to something like the SEC or FinCEN or whatever, doing the sale through like their channels, they're just going to leave it with the exchanges. Because this is the other way to keep the exchanges on board. Like, all right, well, we'll let y'all make money because you're going to make money off of the transaction. And you'll, get 1 or 2 new users or something. Right? Because then it gets into that whole thing of like, oh, if I'm on this exchange, that's going to be another move. It'll probably only be a handful of exchanges who get to do the deal first. I almost feel like Coinbase, assuming Coinbase still get to stay up, would be the first exchange to be a part of a deal like this, where a U.S. agency would come in, take the stuff, and if it was in transit of an exchange, a matter of fact, Binance could now be this middle person right now, because globally speaking, Binance is bigger than Coinbase. So arguably, Binance could be this new middle person. But I also still think that the U.S. is slowly choking Binance out. But that's just my thought on some other stuff. But this is gonna be disrespectful. And what also gonna be interesting to this situation is when they start going into jurisdictions where the U.S. is gonna say, wait, we have economic digital sovereignty in this area, or we have jurisdiction on blah, blah, blah. It's gonna be like, this is gonna lead to a number of things. I can see this leading to a number of things. And I definitely think there's going to be some headbutting down the road when they start crossing into where, so case in point, right? Look at how Bitcoin's accounting process works of UTOs, UTOX, what is it? UTXO. In that it's a combination, it can be a combination of 3 or 4 inputs that make into the sum, right? But the inputs can come from different things. And like looking at how the Satoshi and all of that is created, like there's a, you know what, let me not run down that rabbit hole. But for those of you who understand how the accounting mechanism of the UTXO works for the Bitcoin protocol, I hope you understand where I'm going, because I feel like this would be a point of contention down the road. And I'm gonna leave that one there and jump off to this last story. So I'm gonna close out with a couple of things. One, not the financial advisor, not the CPA, not the lawyer. I'm not telling y'all to go out there and do nothing illegal. Y'all know we coming to the end of the year. So if you're here in the States, I'm just saying the tax situation's got to be real. You need to find a CPA. You need to find somebody who can handle this for you. Because if you're not about your crossing T's and dotting your I's, and this ain't financial advice, this is just, I live in America like other folks who live in America. And I think all of us at this point know the IRS and other agencies within the government will come after you when they feel it's time to get money out of your pockets. No matter where you are. So jumping into this last story, which is funny, it's also a segue into how OFAC, which is the Office of the Office of Foreign Asset Council, what is it? Hold on. Asset Control. Bam. Here we go. OFAC, and it's under the Treasury Department. OFAC is under the Treasury Department. So if you don't know, Bitcoin mining pool F2Pool acknowledges OFAC transaction censorship. The bottom line is they was getting hit with the, hey, this address is on the blacklist. You guys need to not let the transaction go through your mining pool. Now, the CEO or the owner, founder of it then goes into Twitter and is trying to say, well, you know, I have the right to make sure that my company doesn't support blah, 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 blah. The community goes, what are you talking about? The whole idea is that you don't censor Bitcoin transactions. But what most folks don't understand about how F2Pool is set up is the control of how you deal with mempools and like transactions and stuff isn't set at the user who's contributing the hash rate. It's set at the company who controls the devices and the network. This is literally the way that Robinhood works. And the reason why it was set up that way is because it was a fail-safe. Now, granted, they didn't necessarily think it would come all the way to this or where it is now, but they thought of the idea of the control and stuff back then, which goes into the other point of what the EU is looking to do with the kill switch in smart contracts. Exchanges do the same thing now. When too much volume activity happens, what happened? Oh, we have a maintenance issue. Oh, we had to put in, what do they call it? Market breakers, circuit breakers. We do the same thing in the traditional finance market. The same thing happens. Banks will be like, oh, we got to close down today. Oh, something went wrong with the stock market. Oh, we need to, do X, Y, and Z to limit people's ability to withdraw their value, their capital. It's the same thing that they're talking about here. Now, my thing with this, though, is what is the community like? This is 100% a garnish, a blemish on F2Pool's public image, right? Their brand, their persona. But at the same time, if you ever listen to any of the interviews from the dude who is the founder of the company, he was never about the Bitcoin crypto ideals to begin with. He was always a chase the bag money dude. He was always a grifter in that sense. And so with him saying what he's saying, my thing is, okay, so what does that mean for the rest of the folks who are actually contributing the hash rate to that network? Are y'all moving? Because if y'all ain't moving, then shut the hell up. Because obviously y'all don't care enough either, or y'all don't care at all. The point of why I'm bringing this story up is just so that y'all understand. And yo, shout outs to Reggie. I was watching you and Crypto Blood's interview last night, man. Definitely some interesting developments going on with you, sir. But Reggie said this a while ago. He said, people say Bitcoin is uncensorable. And he's like, no, that's a lie, because they'll catch you either at the exchanges or the wallets if it's a non-custodial wallet. This is another example of where the centralization comes in. And it's another example of how it's a number of players in this space who don't give two licks about the ideals of the early movement in the space. They don't care about economic sovereignty. They don't care about digital sovereignty. They don't care about anything other than, I'm not trying to go to jail and I'm going to make as much money as possible off of the user base. Okay. And so with that, like, that's just where the space is. That's part of just, as we get more people who weren't here during the 08 period or don't remember the 08 period, and like don't understand all of the other different geopolitical and local level, as far as your country itself, your state that you're in, your town and your city, your county, and like those different things of the financial setups between all of those different levels, and what it means to you in this new digital age. Like, there's a number of folks who don't understand that. There's a number of folks who don't care about that. And so arguably the point that he argues about, like, well, why don't I have the right as the founder of this company to make it sure that my business doesn't break any of these rules that the OFAC folks, who are part of the Treasury Department in the States, is telling me to not do. And then the counter to that, I'm gonna leave y'all with this, is why don't the people who contribute the hash rate have the right and the ability to be like, well, I don't want to be a part of your network? Community policing. Is that like, I don't think, that's a question for y'all. Does this count as community policing for what the founder dude is doing? Is this community policing, or is this him trying to double speak? Oh, and then shout outs to the dude 0xb10 Charlie. That was the person who realized that F2Pool was censoring transactions. They were the ones who found the evidence to go, yo, they're censoring transactions. And then they called out F2Pool about it, and then the CEO tried to make it sound one way, and they basically looked stupid on Twitter. And so, yeah. But anywho, I'm gonna leave that all there. Those are a number of things that happen: indicator, patterns, trends, events. I'm not telling y'all this is price talk. I'm just saying, like, here's how this space is developing. Some of this stuff might be good for you. Some of this stuff might be bad for you. I don't know what you're doing. I'm not the financial advisor. I'm not the CPA. I'm not the lawyer. But hopefully something I say gets you to think, or gets you to question, right, what's going on and what you're trying to do. I don't know what that is. Other than that, I'm gonna leave y'all alone. Hopefully y'all had a good turkey day, if that's your thing. If not, at least, as I say, have a productive over busy day. And if it can't be that, at least be in a safe space, in a good place, and with good company. And from one human to another, that's the best that I can wish y'all. All right, man. One.